Today, we welcome the amazing Lauren Walker Lee to the Ambitious, Awakened, and Aligned podcast. I have been so excited for this conversation because one of the things that fills my heart massively is when I meet young, empowered women who are, I can see instantly, world changers and here to make such a massive difference. And I had the pleasure of meeting Lauren at an event recently called Manifest Her, and your light, Lauren, shone so brightly. And we're going to talk about your foundation and everything that you're doing. But please just thank you for being here and welcome to our podcast.
No, this is so thrilling. I'm very touched. I'm very touched by your kind words. I don't really know what to say. Those are beautiful words, and if that is how you viewed me, then, wow, I'm very grateful and thankful and touched.
And we were saying before we started the podcast, everything happens for a reason. The connections happen the way that they're meant to happen. And we
Mhm.
happen to be sitting at the same table. So it felt very serendipitous. And one of the things that at any of the events I do, I actually really do a spotlight on emerging leaders. And
Mhm.
we try to really bring emerging leaders into the space here because I have a huge philosophy that we're always putting a hand forward and we're always putting a hand backwards.
Mhm.
And we're here just to support each other on that journey. And I think your story is so impactful of how you did that yourself. So, a little bit about Lauren before we get started. The first thing is she is a multi hyphenate fashion creative and stylist. And wait, you have to tell us what that means.
Yes, I'm the majority of my time is spent fashion styling and writing. However, I got my start in fashion PR and I do consulting for small brands, and that was just like a byproduct of being on sets and photo shoots with small independent brands, often female founders. They are a one-man band themselves, and you become like a creative sounding board and you help with their photo shoots or even some merchandising and offering creative solutions because they're just such small teams. But within the writing and my former time in PR, it just kind of just paved the way for being this kind of connector and making a way for myself. And I just assembled a career completely myself. Like, it's not like I started a business and there's a team under me. I just have a winding road within the fashion industry, which started with broadcast journalism, actually here in Toronto at Ryerson TMU before going to New York and studying fashion marketing, getting into PR, having an online boutique, and I kinda just kept following what lit me up, and I just added more strings to my bow, and it was really hard to define for a long time because there wasn't one. It was just this multi-hyphenate thing. It was frowned upon about 10 years ago when you couldn't, describe yourself, and now it's all amazing because everybody's side hustles and passions are, like, forefront and center, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. Well, I just kinda kept moving and kept evolving to make a career for myself.
What allowed you to follow your passion versus the shoulds that the world would typically like you to follow? Like the way that you describe that, I would desire that to be every person's way that they navigate because we have no idea. When even when you go to school, it's just a following the nudge of your heart.
Mm.
You don't know where that's meant to go. So, what allowed that path to unfold for you?
When I get something in my head, I it can't go away. My mom has always called me a dog with a bone from when I was very, very little, age 3 and 4. I had get something in my head and would I'd get something in my head and that would be it, and I would kind of, like, see it through. So, of course, you see things through and then you realize it's maybe not for you,
Mhm.
but I wasn't ever afraid to try. That it was probably a big thing. I had huge support of my parents of and yeah, I had the huge support of my parents in my now and but in my younger years, just that they probably just knew I was gonna, like, march to the beat of my own drum,
Mhm.
and, yeah, I thought big. I always thought big, and I always thought outside of the box. I never thought things were just not possible. They were just possible. Like, I wrote a letter to Much Music when I was, like, 16 years old because I thought I should be a junior VJ to speak to the younger generation. And so just like stuff like that, and just saying, "Hey, I'm gonna go to New York. I'm gonna get a second degree." And I did. And then the effort that you put in will reward you. So if you're willing to work hard, especially in that city, and I just navigate, not ever afraid to send an email, not ever afraid to, cold call, and just figure it out. And I kind of did, but it's not easy. And it doesn't mean that there's crazy, like, definable success. But to me, I just couldn't work a corporate job. I didn't really want to go to one place
Mhm.
5 days a week, and I just kept following what lit me up. And I don't know if everybody knows, but I'm like a Sagittarius generator, so I'm pretty out there in
Mhm.
in in general. And being
Yes.
a generator, you just follow what lights you up.
Yeah, I love the Sagittarius part too. I'm Sag rising, and then I'm a generator as well, so I completely understand what you're talking. And then I mix some Gemini in there. So,
Mhm,
for me, it was constant change.
mhm,
What I love though is that you've identified that you're looking for the strings to keep adding.
mhm,
Whereas I think for myself, I went through some of those stages of, hang on, this I'm not the same as everybody else, and it was a bit confusing for me. So I love the clarity that you describe it because truly everyone listening, this is the way to create fulfillment. This is the way to create joy. This is actually the way to create any desired vision that you have. When we get in our own way and block what's coming to us, that's when things don't unfold the way that they're meant to. And I love that you said that doesn't mean it was easy. So walk us through that. What do you mean by that?
Oh, the fashion industry is not easy,
Right.
and, I had some great opportunities. I probably squandered a few opportunities along the way.
They
That there's a
weren't the
couple.
right ones.
They weren't the right ones, but I was in, like, major fashion cities. I was in New York and I was in London, so you're doing something at, like, quite a high level. I was like a junior, but you're still at the place that the industry is best.
Mhm.
And then I moved to smaller cities and just, like, continued to figure it out, readjusted, had to reestablish myself. I lived in New York, London, Liverpool, and then back at Toronto. I think I've reestablished myself, like, four times,
Mhm.
and always kinda looking at what was available,
Mhm.
and then I'd go for it, kind of find I'm just trying to spot the coolest opportunities, or who do I know and who can I speak to, or who can introduce me onwards to get where I wanted to be. But as long as I felt good doing it, it wasn't crazily defined.
Mhm.
But you hustle as a stylist or any, like, gig worker, you hustle. It's up to you. It's up to you to find your next job. So the networking and the connecting, and now that we can do content, so like social media content, you're kind of always marketing yourself, and
Always.
you're always trying to connect. And I'm not salesy by any means.
Mhm.
And I can't sell myself. I've realized what I'm good at, and I realize what I'm not good at.
Mhm.
And so just by being kind of out and about, and writing for the magazines and helping others, and I'm always just like a phone call or a text or a DM away for creative women or fashion designers or fashion students to get involved, or to get in touch with me. And it is just absolutely so natural. I feel so silly, kind of like tooting my own horn there a bit, but it is just really, really a natural thing about being also a communicator and being open and wanting to help. And
Mhm.
no sweat off my back. If it's a phone call or if it's an introduction, I'm so happy to do it, or just to, like, answer questions and be pointed, or pointing those in the right direction, or someone who might want a direction or need a question answered. So I don't know if
Mhm.
that answers your question,
Well,
but
I
the
think
difficulty of
that
it
is
all.
sales though, right? I
Mhm,
and I think that's part of we kind of we have that still ickiness towards that word, but
mhm,
sales is you showing up as who you are, being generous with your gifts and inviting people in.
mhm. Oh,
And
good.
then
I'm gonna use that one.
if they
I'm gonna
need
use
what
it.
you have, then it's a beautiful match. And if they don't, then they go find what they need somewhere else,
Somewhere
right?
else.
So,
I think we're getting the language around all of that better now, probably
yes.
the last 5 years. I think
Mhm.
that's what people, even when it started with like not being ashamed of your weaknesses, because you're going to be on teams where people are going to love the stuff you don't like to do.
Mhm.
So all of the language around that, I've only really developed it probably the last 5 years, as being a multi hyphenate is okay, and I know what I'm not good at. And that there's going to
Yes.
be the people who love like the details, or they get their head down, and they're like the organizers or the
Yes,
chief
well,
chief
and us
operating
generators,
officers.
we have to
Yeah,
have those people in our lives,
people.
right? Yes, we need those people in our lives. So I always love the stories of people that choose to pack their suitcase, leave, go explore the world, and find out who they're meant to be. And by the way, I have never heard this multi-hyphenate. And but I've multi-passionate I've used often, and I
Yeah.
love this term. So we're gonna keep exploring that. I think that so many entrepreneurs that follow their passion and path are multi-hyphenate
Hmm.
because in order to really succeed in business, it's you take that optimism, align
Yeah.
it with the gifts that you have, and kinda you've gotta go into the places where you know nothing. It's unknown what you're going to be shown. And then you're shown the next thing, and you just add it to your kit bag,
Hmm.
and all of a sudden, like you said, you've got a beautiful symphony happening because of the strings. But that takes time. And so, okay, so tell me about the journey of moving to different places.
So I always wanted to be in print journalism, and so going to New York and
Okay.
getting as near to the magazines as I could was the reason for going. And I did love learning, I did love school, and I was strategic. I knew that going to Parsons in New York would open doors, or I would just get to the place with the student visa, and I was ready to hustle. And I did. I got amazing internships. I interned at Vogue, I interned at Women's Wear Daily, the trade publication. I interned in PR, and that was very, very high level fashion designers. And then they hired me, and this is like 2008, and the world, the Lehman Brothers thing had happened, and I found
Mhm.
myself with this job, an incredible, incredible learning ground. I'll tell anybody is agency PR. Agency PR. If you like lifestyle, beauty, fashion, if you're into that kind of communications world, and who you're going to meet, having a multitude of clients, being responsible for events, and just go do it for a year. I tell everybody, just go do agency PR for a year. It will teach
I
you
could see
a
that.
lot, because
Yes.
it's the connecting of the dots. You are promoting a client. You have to learn all the communication skills, and you got to be fast. You have to be really, really fast. And it was incredible. It was incredible to be in New York at that time. And it's what you put in, that city will give back to you if you're willing to hustle. And then I met my husband, and I moved to Liverpool, and my parents were not thrilled about that, because I had just gone and like, and I probably should have stuck it out a bit longer, like done long distance with my husband, maybe just like a year longer,
Mm.
just to live a little bit in New York. But nope, again, just again, like followed my heart, went to Liverpool, but that was a bit of a cultural change. It was
Mm.
a big
Is he
cultural
from there?
change.
Is he from
Yeah, he's
Liverpool?
yeah, he's from Liverpool.
Mhm.
And so I was up there, very big musical city where the Beatles are from, great culinary scene, but there wasn't any fashion,
No
lifestyle, beauty, like
fashion.
nothing. So I moved to London, and I did one more additional year in PR in London. Incredible experience again, got it out of my system. And yeah, there's relationships I still have today. And I was able just to like keep, what am I trying to say? I was able to fulfill, I guess, just still that side of me that wasn't done. That part wasn't done, of like real fashion in a proper office setting. And um but it was hard. It was hard to be away from my husband. We were engaged at the time. So when I went back up to Liverpool, I started an online boutique, because I didn't know what else to do.
Mhm.
I didn't know what else to do. So that's where I've really said I tried my hand at entrepreneurship, because I just wanted something to do that was more aligned with myself and my interests. So I made an online boutique, and we sold really gorgeous gifts and accessories and candles and small objects and ceramics. And it was insanely beautiful. And this goes way before Shopify. And I had to learn how to do everything myself. And it
Wow.
and I had a developer, so I didn't have to do the coding and stuff, but it was from the ground up, like the
Mhm.
branding, the buying, all the writing, all the product descriptions, hiring photographers, and it was an amazing experience, and you're wearing all of these hats. So I think that's probably the term that most people know is that you're wearing all of these hats, and that's what I've done for myself more in recent years is that, yes, I'm still wearing all of these hats. I just think it falls under something a bit more definable now.
That makes sense, for sure. I think it's always good, though, to learn each of those hats as you're growing and expanding your own self and your own business, because then you have more awareness of everything else as your business is continuing as it grows, right? You have
Mhm,
that awareness. So I think a lot of people hire too soon before they learn the things
mhm,
they
mhm.
need to learn so that you can actually be a good leader because you actually understand how the
Understand.
pieces come together for sure. So love that story. I think too it's interesting when you think about the growth that happens from going to any other city and really learning who you are, but from a fashion perspective to go to the cities where
Mhm,
it's been born and it exists and bring it back here where there is a market hungry and seeking
mhm.
that, but aren't
You're
willing
absolutely
to
right.
go live in those places. So now you get to bring it back to the people that desire to know more, learn more, have
Mhm.
that experience. So, yeah, fashion here, what's the difference for you? What's the difference in Toronto now, especially?
Oh, it could I could go on. That could be a whole other
A
podcast.
whole other podcast.
But, because we're so connected now with social media and you see
Mhm.
everything and people can sell, there's so many other great countries and great cities that are doing things outside of the fashion for. So Toronto does have stuff going on, but I would still urge everybody to go try a year somewhere else. And
Yeah.
or if you really are serious, then yeah, you go to one of the fashion capitals. It's just the way. It's like people go to Silicon Valley. It's really no different.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. If you wanna go to the mountains, go to the mountains.
It's in yeah, yeah.
You gotta
But
climb the mountains, you have to be in a mountain, for
but
sure.
but there's stuff going on here. I can like name. We could put it in your show notes. I can shout out some friends and brands
Well, that'd be amazing.
that we yeah we could put it in your show notes because people really should be buying Canadian. I especially now with what with this like
I mean, I'm
tariff
seeing
war
such a
that's going on.
surge of passion for that, which is so beautiful and powerful. And I was sharing with you, I work with a luxury women's brand, and we
Hmm.
just had the conversation last week and said, we have to be more mindful of this. This is vital to our future. So I would love
Hmm.
if you share some of those
Yeah,
with our
I
listeners. And
can.
yeah. Okay,
I
so
could go on.
you
Go
said
yeah
that
no
community collaboration and connecting the dots to uplift others is something that's really key to your desire, your passion. So tell us about the community collaboration and connecting for you.
so I when I kinda came up with that little turn of phrase or what we might speak about, it is because I don't think I defined it for so long that that's what I was just naturally doing. And so it's really kind of recently where I'll just go back a little bit about, like, having the boutique, leaving New York, leaving London. They seemed like failures at the time. They seemed
Mm.
like I didn't, like, figure out my thing, and every at that point in the mid 2010s or it was it was 2010, 11, 12, 13 in there, I feel that we were all still, like, used to or had been told that you are one thing. You need to be one thing, gotta figure it out, and I had always wished, like, why didn't I wanna become an accountant? Why didn't I wanna become,
You
like, a singular
should have been an
profession?
accountant, Lauren. Come on.
Yeah, a singular profession.
Yes.
I'm like, "Why didn't I have a straight line? Like, why didn't I do this?" Because I just hadn't figured it out, and I just saw people around me, and my husband's successful in his career, my father too, and I'm just like, "Why didn't I have it figured out, like, the one thing?" And friends were really doing well, but they had very linear paths, and I
And I'm
so it
guessing you
was
didn't
seeing
know about Sag Generator at the time,
that
did you?
time, no. No,
Right,
no, no, no,
right.
no, no.
Yeah.
But I was on my spiritual kick. I started with Gabby Bernstein, so that started around that
Amazing.
time when I got married. That was like getting into spirituality, light, and figuring it
Mhm.
all out. And I did a lot of work on myself around that time. But confidence really building and boosting happened like later when I got back to Toronto, and I think I was 31, and I started styling. I got an agent and it just went from there, just job to job to job, figuring out the lay of the land in the Toronto fashion community, the styling community,
Mm.
and, learning learning as I went, kind of went, like, more so, like, just the protocols and, like, etiquette, not about actually physically styling, that part's easy, but just the lay of the land
Right.
in like, the clients and the type of work and, who got what jobs and what and where the ceiling was, like, you're learning all of that, you're feeling yourself out, like,
Mhm.
in a newish industry, but it wasn't until I could really say that all these little pivots were fine. All these little pivots now give me talent and strengths to work with other people, launch things, not be fearful, and it's all come into play for the Love Club, the charity project, which I'm sure we'll get to. But
Mhm.
to answer the question about community and connecting and collaboration, I just found I'm like a lot of people come to me for that, or I'm doing it naturally. Not necessarily is it being monetized all the time, but it is such a strength that I need to play up somehow.
Mhm. Well, I think community is the medicine, definitely the medicine people are looking for today. But one of the things that stuck out really quickly with you is you are a connector. And I don't know that when you're a connector, you see it the same way as someone else can see it. So that all of the pieces that you said, oh, those were maybe failures, all of a sudden when you can flash forward, it's
Mhm.
the connections, it's the people
Mhm.
that you have met through all of those opportunities that all of a sudden you start to see like a web of how, oh,
Mhm.
I know them, oh, I can connect you to them, oh, I can support you with that. Even what we did here of all of a sudden we've been talking about who can we each connect with outside of this, and that's a superpower.
Mhm. Thank you.
That's a superpower to be able to do that. So I think it's really, sit back and realize that
Mm.
the connector piece is so massive. Yeah, it's amazing. So then let's get to the love club because again, what was that? That was connecting the dots.
Yeah,
That was
it
being
was.
a connector. Yeah,
It
like
it
the
it
power
was.
of how that unfolded. So let's hear your story because it's so magical.
Okay, I am very happy to have the opportunity to tell it. So thank you so much for having me and the Love Club on. But it starts in December 2023. I had my daughter on my 40th birthday.
Oh, I
And
didn't know it was your 40th birthday.
yeah, so I had her on my 40th birthday. I had
Wow.
her a little bit late and later than in life. And it was something that like she's an IVF baby. I'm very proud of that. But I put it off. She was on ice for a while. So, she was on ice
I feel like that's the
and
title of a book.
as
She was on ice.
as for Edge came at the perfect time, and she was the right embryo, and she's mine, and she's amazing, and her name is Lourdes. And yes, we have the same initials, and we have the same birthday, and that was a little gift from my OB that that was gonna be possible, and it was a coincidence, it was a universal coincidence that that happened. But, about 4 or 5 days later, might have been 6, I was 6 days postpartum, and I answered a Facebook post of someone a mother needing newborn diapers and newborn formula, and I was doing the same for my baby. And so, packed up the car with what I could from Shoppers Drug Mart, and me and my mom just went and dropped something off at a porch. That was it, and then I just could not stop thinking about this person who I didn't know and what else I could do. So, as soon as the calendar hit, I think January 2nd, 2024, I had put, pen to paper about an idea to make baby clothes. That if I could get donations of end of roll surplus fabric, which I knew existed because of my experience in the fashion industry, that surplus fabric is going unused, would end up in landfill, and it's not necessarily needed for other fashion brands because they are working to a calendar, they're working to a color palette, and they're working to adult sizes. But I knew it would be great for baby clothes, and we weren't working to a calendar, a color palette, or anything like that. And through an Instagram friend, I got connected to a fabric supplier, and with one phone call, he gave me an very, very large donation of baby safe, baby appropriate fabric.
Mm,
And at the same time that was kind of going on and had taken pen to paper, I was connecting the dots. I knew
mm,
somebody at George Brown College who probably could enlist some students for me. I knew I had fashion designer friends. I knew all of these workrooms were um, in operation, that we still had a few manufacturers, proper manufacturers left, but that there was going to be seamstresses, grandmas, and fashion students. So whether we made 10 units or 10,000, I knew that all of the building blocks were there and available in Toronto. And if we pooled our resources and our time and our skills, we could achieve a lot. So if everybody just pitched in a little bit, we could make an impact giving back to those in need. And in early January 2024, I just reached out to women's shelters and women and teen organizations, young women's organizations, and I just had phone calls with anybody who would speak to me. And I started learning the system. I started to learn about the need. I started to learn that it's sadly broken and that they are responsible for their own fundraising. Yes, there's government support, but I had to go in, I had to learn about what I was going to be up against, and I love a challenge. And what was also motivating, never mind just like the helping and the social mission, but that I'm like, why hasn't this been done? It was driving me nuts that I'm like, how come there's like a lack of common sense? Like, why is this done yet? You know?
Mhm.
And I thought that someone was going to take the wind out of my sails and tell me it had been done, or that they were, or not wind out of my sails, but that someone was going to say that it was done, or I was going to learn that all of our big brands in Canada were already supporting them, because that's how it should be to me. All of
Mhm.
these massive brands, and
Mhm.
that we know, all of the big commercial mall brands and all of the product they're putting on this planet, no shelter should be without. No, and
No
just like
shelter should be
notes
without.
should be without.
Mm-mm.
And I was finding out that that's not the case. So then that fueled me even more, because it's a lack of common sense. And I'm doing is connecting the dots in a new way to give back to those in need. But I guess it takes me coming up with those dots, or
Mhm.
me coming up with the idea.
It always takes somebody coming up with the idea. And yes, it's shocking that that idea hasn't come up before, but here it is now. And
Yeah.
what an incredible just change in the world. So, how how are you then finding the matches for the products you're creating? Where are you
The
donating?
So we have 6 organizations right now,
Mhm.
and we can have more. It can go there's the aim to go province-wide and countrywide. It just really is supply chain and
Mhm.
the management and having some personnel.
Mhm.
My goal for 2025 is that the Love Club internally has a small team of volunteers, because really it is just me. I have the help of it's the producing partners. That ended up being quite a straight line, I must say. The
Wow.
fabric to some volunteer sewers, students, and then local manufacturers who really manufacture for fashion brands. They're like, "Yep, we can pitch in." So I'm like, "Well, okay." So seeing my
Amazing.
idea come to fruition, I was like, oh, "Okay, that was this is challenging in its own way." But I've
Mhm.
spoken about previous challenges. I'm like, "This is easy because this is all in alignment and people are feeling called to it." And I'm like getting all these green lights. There's challenges and humps and stuff like that. But like I'm like, this is a very successful thing that I've done. I'm saying this because 'cause I'm shocked.
It almost feels bigger than you. I'm
Yeah,
sensing
and
that there's something bigger happening.
bigger. Yeah, there's for sure
Right.
something bigger happening,
Mhm.
and I say it just more in shock that it's like it worked,
Right.
and that we prototyped, delivered all within like a 9-10 month period last year. And I just reach out, I ask if they need it. They want, I'm like, "Do you want new with tags baby clothes?" The clothes are branded, they have tags, they have inner labels. The line is called Club Kid. They're super cute, they're fashiony, and these manufacturing partners really help to scale. They're like, "Yep, we can do it. We've got downtime." And it's what I thought. It is what I thought. And if I was scared to do this, this wouldn't have happened. Or if one person, or if I was the type of personality that like a first phone call said, "I don't know if you really should do that," or someone was a little bit of a naysayer. But if I was like timid, I would have been like, "Okay, so let's go. Let's play with my newborn daughter. Not
Mhm.
let's start a nonprofit."
Absolutely. Well, I think so often we're never given a desire we're not meant to follow, and that
Mhm,
if we follow in full trust of that, won't find its way to unfold.
mhm,
But we find a way to block it ourselves, to stop it ourselves, to think, "Who am I to?" And yet you did not allow that. You just
mhm,
kept going and the pieces kept coming. But I think this is another example of connection, right? You connected all the pieces based on the fact that you had been multi-hyphenate.
mhm.
that you
Mhm.
had all these different branches of networks that you could
Mhm.
find a way for that to come together.
Mhm.
It's so amazing. So what do you most need right now from the perspective of support?
It is discerning the personnel on the inside, finding the people that would like to join the mission. I always say my table's very big, but it's they'll the perfect people will have the strength in their wheelhouse that is not mine, and be able to commit.
Mm,
That is the one thing. Everybody thinks they want to help, and then they don't really put a lot on their plate. So
mhm,
I know that I can put a lot on my plate, and I'm just functioning in that way. That's just how I function.
mhm,
And I think it's just finding aligned teammates
mhm.
who can join with their strengths and run with it when if it's like nonprofit um, legalities or fundraising
Right.
or just even the logistics, having maybe some volunteers that can do some of the driving or just reaching out to brands for product donation. It's just like
Mhm.
it's a bit of manpower. It's a bit of
Right.
manpower, and I just think it's funner. It's going to be more fun with a team, and the
Mhm.
more awareness we build, the more impact we can make.
Yeah.
And so it's I can't bite off more than I can chew just because there's just not the personnel like with me to achieve it. But there's more fabric, and if it's just the straight line of fabric to production and production to delivery, then that's a very straight line goal. And
Mhm.
that gets to the charity partners, and the charity partners give me incredible feedback. I've got great testimonials. It's not you have to respect the young moms and the end users, like their
Mhm.
privacy. So it's not like loads of photos, for example, but the words are just beautiful that these little gifts that offer like this pride and dignity so the mother can do the hard job of mothering and concentrate on the other necessities of life of like food, shelter, mental health programming. And there these organizations that we are just gifting these clothes to, they're doing very hard work on the ground.
Mhm.
And I've had the privilege of sitting there and learning and been in shelters, women escaping domestic violence, young women overcoming addiction and getting their children back from CAS, and they are starting from like nothing.
Yeah,
So
ground zero.
ground zero. And
Mhm.
so when they hear from us or they hear from me, they're almost like they're so touched and shocked. And again, I'm just like, but why aren't you being supported?
Mhm.
I'm pleased to say that we've connected with the YWCA, so the YMCA, the women's
Incredible.
side of it. They have their own shelter system. They have their own young mom parenting pre and postnatal. Oh, so yeah, young mom pre and postnatal programming
Mhm.
that they do with. So they're working on the front lines, and my call included them letting me know that they have not had one baby donation in 2 years. And I'm like, "How is this?" You do that programming. Like, the shelter system doesn't always have isn't babies all the time. It's a diverse group of ages
Of
that are in
course.
the shelter system,
Right.
but their baby programming, they
Is a
don't
baby
they
program.
is a baby program,
Right.
and I'm on the end of the Zoom going, "This fires me up that in
Mhm.
2 years, I'm their first email offering baby products."
Wow.
Yeah, so this is
Is
the
it
thing
just
that
that
what I'm
the
scratching the
idea
surface.
hasn't been there, it sounds like, this idea for that type of support for the babies
Mhm.
has just
I
been
th
there, or for young moms more than anything.
So us making small batch baby wear as a
Mhm.
community builder in itself. So whether that we have part of the Love Club has manufacturers that do this at scale, and
Mhm.
we can ship across the country, as well as university students or community groups getting together to maybe sew bibs or sew blankets. George
Mhm.
Brown had a sewing day where they sewed beautiful baby blankets. The YMCA or the YWCA they're like, please send as many of these baby blankets as you can. So that's on deck for me week
Mhm.
after next. But that there's that community in there's the community piece to the Love Club in itself, as well as like the creation of the baby clothes, maybe at a bigger scale with manufacturing partners.
Mhm.
But our other piece of the Love Club is approaching brands big and small for product donation for both mom and baby. So that's the thing that takes some manpower and logistics, and that's more of the head scratcher. It's like all of this stuff is landed here in Canada. So why is here the example being the YWCA? Why isn't it just being funneled? Why aren't they
Mm,
like taken care of with hygiene products or
mhm.
sheets or pajamas?
And we know that there's excess,
And we know there's access.
right?
We know that fashion industry is, second biggest polluter, that our consumption and our consumerism is wild,
Mhm.
wild.
Mm.
And I know being because of my experience in industry, current and previous, about how much product gets like given to influencers and given out and these unboxings. And it's just like, and our appetite for consumption because of social media, and we all see an H&M sales rack at the end of all of those t-shirts. Like,
Mm,
okay, so they're landed here. Why don't you just funnel them off
mm.
to some shelters or some women's organization? But I think it's manpower and logistic. So if the Love Club can also be doing that, and there would be personnel teammates on that, we could become a hub of like getting product, making product, and giving product.
Well, I think even just the social awareness, Lauren, is, you've brought that to the forefront because that was on your heart.
Hmm.
And I don't think it's going to be difficult to get a lot of people, a lot of women especially, to say, of
Hmm.
course. And just actually put a little bit of mind and body and
Hmm.
spirit towards it because we had lots of decades of just lack of awareness.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
that's on all of us in the past that, there just wasn't that pause long enough to think about where are those needs and where can we support and where can we put our hands and where can we put our money and where can we put
mhm,
our time. And so, it takes someone like you to spark that for us to throw this out to the universe right now in a
mm,
conversation as you are with all your conversations to just keep lighting that spark until change happens, and that's how
mhm,
change happens.
mhm.
So
It's yeah, absolutely true because, yeah, by putting it out into the universe, you never know. A universe is going to hopefully reward you, but these
mhm,
conversations, just making it to more people's ears.
yeah, for sure. Your story about the diapers reminded me I was going to I'm gonna say a big brand, I'm not gonna call them out.
Yeah.
But I was going to a big brand early in the morning to pick something up, and they weren't quite open, which I was surprised. It was, like, just before 8 a.m., and there was a young mom sitting by the door crying her eyes out, and a few people had walked by her, and as I got closer, I wasn't sure what was happening, and then I realized it was a young I guess I didn't actually know it was a mom. It was a young woman just sitting on the sidewalk by the door crying.
Mhm,
And so I had to stop and I just said, "Is everything okay? Can I help you with anything?"
mhm.
And she said, "I just need diapers. My baby needs diapers. We tried to come yesterday. We didn't come at the right time. They were out. And I've been knocking on the door and we can look inside the store and see that there's employees working. This young woman does not look like a threat in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
You can see she's distraught. They're ignoring her. So then I'm knocking on the door and I said, she just needs diapers. And they said, well, the problem is we're not opening because our systems are down.
Mhm.
And I said, "Okay, no problem. She just needs diapers. I have cash. I'll give you more cash. I'll give you double the cash.
Yes.
But what this need is right now for her to walk away from here with some diapers." And then she got more into a story of being afraid to go back because the baby needed, but also her husband was going to be angry because it was her fault they didn't have the diapers and, on and on. And we understand that there's more
Mhm,
at play. There's the psychology of everything there
mhm,
as you said, they're not coming from healthy environments, these women that we're really trying to support in so many ways. They're dealing with other things
things.
that we want to support them so they can just be a good mom in the moment, like just have the energy and capacity to be a mom. And for
Mhm,
everyone listening that's had a child, it like with all the support systems, it takes everything we have. So imagine not having those support systems. So anyways, they denied us the diapers, the box of diapers, even though I was willing to pay cash. So I got in my car and I drove and got her a box of diapers and
Oh,
came
good for
back and
you.
gave them to her. But we don't realize the impact of that one little moment that we could walk by. You didn't have to respond to that note that you saw,
Mhm.
and yet you did, and that changes the ripple effect of that.
Mhm.
We don't
Mhm.
even get to see or experience.
It's so true because I feel quite blessed because, like, being invited here to tell the story. The Love Club's gonna be in a local Toronto newspaper, so I was answering some questions, and
Awesome.
the question included, like, did I meet the mom and, like, the experience and the impact of that. I'm like, well, the impact is now the Love Club that, like, I dropped these things to a porch and it really didn't matter. I just kept thinking about her, and between the Facebook post and my daughter, that was the seed for the Love Club. And just to think that, like, what else I could do if someone was sitting there not being able to afford the newborn diapers and formula, that I was having to do the exact same thing. And it was like, it was challenging, and it is challenging. I mean, about formula, it is so challenging. So, like,
Mhm.
my it just tugs and tugs at my heartstrings, and that there was no way I was, like, going to sit back. And again, like I said, I'm like, whether we made 10 little jogging pants or 10,000, like, it was that I had that idea and I would be silly to
You answered
ignore
the
it if
call.
people need it. Yeah.
You answered the call, and I just wanna encourage everyone listening to answer their call, and
Right.
also, we're gonna put in the show notes how to find the Love Club. It's theloveclub.ca. I think the message is any way that you can help.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
with financial, if that's what feels right, time, energy, and connections, if that's
Mhm.
what you have available, material, anything. This is the beginning of a mission, Lauren, that
Mhm.
you're bringing to life. So, we're going to be here, sitting here a year from now, celebrating the expansion of this and how many people you've touched. A year after that, who knows what's possible?
Mhm.
If you could sum up the mission, like what's the overall mission if you looked longer term, or are you just so focused on today that
I think the mission, is to support baby and mothers in need in Canada, and if by the production of small batch baby, where it's for sure, so it's a social mission, but it's underpinned by this environmental pillar that we are using surplus fabric.
yeah,
So that is it. If we go province wide, countrywide, it could expand to include maybe a bit more of like social enterprise if we're ever selling something for 100% of proceeds to go back into it. But all of those conversations are on the table in my opinion, because you just don't know what shape it's going to land in. It's official shape, but it's pretty much a make product, get product, give product to those who need it most.
incredible. I'm so thrilled with what you're doing and so inspired. So we planted some new seeds today. Follow the nudge on your heart to support.
Mhm.
Follow the nudge on your heart to support Lauren and this mission because it is so desperately needed. As women, when we support women, we change the world. That I know to be true in
Mhm.
every cell of my body. So I'm in awe of you. I'm so thrilled that we had the opportunity to connect.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to ask you what ambitious, awakened, and aligned might mean to you.
Ambition, awaken,
Ambitious,
and
awakened,
weakened,
and alive.
and alive. What does it mean to me?
Yes.
I think it is me, to be honest, now that I'm kind of, like, feeling really good in my skin, really happy where the Love Club is, where I'm at as a mom, and I think that, like, becoming a mom kind of became my superpower to, like, not give an F about
Oh my
about
gosh.
stuff.
It's massive.
About of it. I think that's why I'm just like, I'm going for it. This the Love Club deserves to be here. These women deserve the help. And if you aren't with me, that's okay. I'm gonna go find people who are.
Okay, I know that I've thought of 3 or 4 new connections that I'm gonna share with you when we get off this phone call. So let's go with community, collaboration, and connection. Let's
Yeah.
amplify this thing. And again, thank you. I'm in awe of you, and I'm so excited you were here, and I can't wait to see where we go from here.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and it is so cool to be connected, and it's just where I sat at that table. It's where I sat in that room.
Yes. Remember, what table you're drawn to matters.
Yes.
So good. We'll see you next week, everybody.